Alright, so this is basically just a continuation of the yesterday's video.
Yep.
Because we had so much to catch up on. We had to split it up so we could make sure to get, like, Gone Girl and Annabelle and them out yesterday. So, these three are the rejects that were left over from last week or the week before. And we're going to start with the Maze Runner, which I kind of unfairly was giving a hard time going into it. Because this young adult fiction set in a post-apocalyptic world with battling children and all that is like really running its course really quickly.
Extremely redundant.
If you saw my lovely review of how much I love Divergent, you already know where this is coming from. But no, this isn't that. This isn't bad like that was.
No.
It starts off with that kid from the internship that I hated so much, which I didn't know it was him until the end credits. I didn't recognize him. But the thing is this is one of those movies, okay? It's one of those young adult fiction movies where basically the first 20 minutes or so is the author sitting back and masturbating while telling you all of his great terminology and all of the things that came from his mind, or her, I don't know. This is a book. Yes, this is definitely a book.
This is definitely a book. We talked about the YA adaptation a little bit ago, so.
Yes. Okay.
It's a guy.
Okay. So, it starts with this kid in an elevator. And the elevator is going upward. We're already throwing this terminology immediately. They can't just call it an elevator, or a lift even. It's called the box, because everything in this movie needs a term.
It's not the hot box, though. That comes later.
So, she's been in there all damn day.
Exactly.
So when the box gets to the top, it's this big wide open space where a ragtag group of
Lord of the Flies.
More like they're a little older than that, but pretty much. And basically we get everything we need to know about what's going to happen here. There's a thing for non-book readers, I'll go through this. The first thing they tell him is, sooner or later you're going to remember your name, because that's the only thing that let us keep, whatever that means. And all it takes is a kick to the head, and he remembers. And then they talk about how the box is made for, every month a new kid is brought to them by the box. And the box also provides them with the shit they need to survive.
Like the packages in the Hunger Games.
Yeah. The, like the crates.
Yes.
They should fuck them over when it's one of them is the crate from Creepshow.
Awesome.
Oh,
I buy it.
Oh, I'm so hungry. Oh, shit! And then that's the end of it. But, anyway, just tell them to call you Billy. So, there's also, these gigantic doors. I was kind of reminded of Gamer a little bit in this, too.
I got that.
Only it's like grass and stuff instead of the white sand. These big-ass doors open and there is a gigantic maze. And they've pretty much they're basically just guessing. Because they're not able to leave this place. So they're basically just assuming that if they can get through the maze, that they can find a way out. And the doors close at night and don't open again, and nobody has survived in a night in the maze because of these giant
scorpion.
They look
hybrids.
like giants. Yeah, they're like this slimy monster, but they have like mechanical legs. They're like a toy in Sid's room.
John Peters would love these things.
They're not big enough.
That's true, but the doors open and there they are.
Now, I suppose I can give them credit here as far as all this terminology we have to keep up with. It's, instead of, like, the mechanical spiders or whatever, they have a name too. They're grievers, I think they called them. I'd like to see the little setting where they came up with this shit. But, no, we just go with that. And of course, runner is a term too, because we know they're supposed to be, like, terms only for this story, because the first 5 minutes is them saying, like, the box and runner, and the main character is there to say box and runner and repeat every word they say with a question mark. So they have to explain
Of course.
the lingo to us. So the author can feel like he's created something original. So anyway, I really don't hate this movie.
No.
Now, and they've been doing this for 3 years. And they have all the names carved into the wall, and they get scratched out every time somebody dies. And if they've been receiving one person a month for 3 years, they should have 36 people, I guess. I wasn't exactly able to count I was trying to figure out if, like, they had done the math, and I couldn't tell how many names were on the wall and how many had been crossed off and how many there actually were here.
Mm-hmm.
But no, they've all been stuck here for 3 years, and that's basically what it is. And then one day, there are 2 guys coming out. One of them is Albie, who's kind of the leader, because he was the first one there. I'd be really interested. They brought up something in the movie that's only touched on. We don't even see it like in flashback. They just mention it in dialogue. What could have made an interesting movie by itself, I think, is since a person is brought up by the box every month. They were talking about why Albie's the leader, and the guy says, well, obviously one kid comes up a month, which means there had to be a first one, which means the first one was here alone for a month and had to figure out everything by himself. That Albie backstory would make a good movie by itself. It'd be like Castaway.
Yeah, completely.
But no, we don't get that much Albie because he spends over half his screen time unconscious. He's like Raphael. So, they're in there and Albie's unconscious and the guy's trying to bring him back out and the doors are closing. So this new kid thinks he's gonna be a hero and he runs into the maze and the doors close. As if he thought he was gonna be able to get in there and get them out before the doors close when they're like this far apart when he ran in. It was like DiCaprio trying to get through that wall in Inception. That's to get in. I had no idea how he thought he was gonna get out. But that's how a hero thinks, I guess.
Yeah.
So eventually that leads to they actually survive a night in the maze for the first time ever because the new kid kills a griever. And they decide to make him a runner. Which apparently is a promotion. I don't know that I'd want to be a runner.
No.
Because another thing they throw in here is the maze is constantly changing. So the runners go in during the day, because the grievers aren't out during the day usually. And they go through, and if they can't find a way out, they just come back and they try again until they find a way out. That seems pretty risky. I would not want to be a runner.
No, not at all.
If Jack Torrance can die in a maze that's just got snow in it, but Wally's got an axe too.
Yeah.
He would have stood more of a chance against the Grievers than they would have.
Easily.
But no. But yeah, it's not a bad movie at all, even though I was really distracted by just the whole... I mean, I know they're trying so hard to be original, which you can't fault them for because that's what you want, but just every single tiny little thing in this movie has its own name. Like, there's this part where they get kind of like, it's almost like it's towards the end of the maze or something, and there's just these tall walls that turn. And without even being asked, the guy just goes, "We call those blades." Well, first of all,
yeah.
Why do those even need names? And secondly, who all has gotten this far that somebody actually thought to come up with a name with them in the first place? But it doesn't matter. It's a young adult novel. Everything needs its own term.
Of course.
Because originality. Speaking of originality, there are a couple of familiar faces in this. First off, the kid from Love Actually. It took me about halfway through the movie to realize that was him, because I was like, I know I've seen that face, but it was much smaller the last time I saw it. Yeah, so about him, I couldn't help but notice, yeah, the movie is pretty original in its concept. I mean, I'm sure there's movies like it, but for the most part, it felt like kind of its own thing, enough to not be annoying. But one thing that kind of went into my head was the fact that this movie is about battling big creatures in an enclosed space, and a character is named Newt. That just kind of, it stands out a little bit, but... No, besides that, I was also, we kind of somewhat have I don't know. I wouldn't go as far as to say a villain, but like a mild antagonist in Will Poulter of all people.
Yeah.
The kid from We're the Millers and Son of Rambo, who's apparently all full of himself now because when this movie came out, apparently there were apparently about it. I saw it with my own eyes. He pulled a Samuel L. Jackson when the Avengers came out. There was a critic that gave this a bad review, and Will Poulter called him out on Twitter. And then he, like, rounded up a whole bunch of fans to basically troll the critic's Twitter account. And that was embarrassing for all involved.
Yeah.
It makes the movie look bad, but, that'll happen. But yeah, the first thing I was really surprised with was how impressive the effects are.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Because this seems like one of those movies where it was going to kind of... Because this and Divergent and The Hunger Games even... I'm not so much into that scene to the point that, honestly, as popular as they are, I do not know at all that these books exist until these movies are made.
Agreed.
Like, I have not heard of these at all. Like, this is this is all new to me.
The Hunger Games I've heard of, that's it.
I had, like, briefly heard of Twilight, like, maybe a month after the movie was announced. That's as close as I've come. And the Potter books I knew before, but
yeah,
apart from that, the Potter series is almost like its own thing.
It really is.
Compared to the rest of them, so...
It has a theme park. The other ones don't.
It seems like it's on a whole different level than all these other ones that have come out since. But, yeah, it's fine. The characters are actually different enough to where you can tell them apart and kind of somewhat care about them if you really want to.
Yeah.
Which I thought was, a decent thing to have, because it's really... Yeah, to be totally honest, I don't really like to jump the gun and criticize movies before I even see them, but I was really judging the fuck out of this movie before I saw it.
I hated the trailer with a passion.
And I thought, yeah...
And you didn't even have to deal with the trailer, I did.
Yeah. But it's perfectly fine, and it's got, that mystery of, they want to get out, like Battle Royale, for instance, or Raise from this year.
Mm.
The main goal not only is to get out, but to find out why, because they have no idea why they're here or who put them there. And they don't have really any clues except the wicked thing. And then there's a girl thrown into the mix about an hour in that's not really that useful. She has like a couple of pieces of information and that's all they need her for, really. We have, in all these movies, there's always the well-acclaimed but not very famous name.
Yeah.
Per se. Well, not always the case if you look at the other ones, but... the person that runs the thing in the young adult novel franchise movie is always going to be, like, a prestigious actor or actress.
Correct.
Like, The Hunger Games has Donald Sutherland, Divergent had Kate Winslet, this has Patricia Clarkson.
Yeah.
It's just this recurring thing forever. I suppose you can go all the way back to the Potter series and do the, all the teachers are famous faces.
Yeah.
And, not really in the same sense because he's the villain, but Michael Sheen in Twilight, more or less. It's always like a famous, prestigious face.
That's a good point.
Even though Patricia Clarkson's in it for like a minute and a half, maybe.
That sounds about right, actually.
And most of the time she's on a screen. But yeah, I was surprised. Like, it's fine. It was engaging enough. The action scenes are pretty exciting. There's a couple of deaths that kind of threw me off I wasn't expecting.
Mm.
Like, I was like, really? You're going to kill that character? I should have seen that coming, but I didn't. I was kind of surprised by that. So, yeah, I'm fine with it. Yeah.
I bashed it way too much.
I think it's interesting that this review has gone for 14 minutes, and probably about 9 minutes of that was me talking about the concept, but that's just what these are. So, yeah. So yeah, there's not too much I have really against it. Like I said, I think sometimes it was trying, it thinks it's a bit more original than it actually is, and it's really trying to play that up, but...
Divergent's more of an offender than that.
But at the same time, they did put that effort into it, so you gotta respect the author for that.
I do.
To try to create a really original world the best they could, so... even if it still feels like a knockoff. They're pretty much all going to, so you just gotta kind of run with it, and the good ones will be good, and the bad ones will be bad. So, when the Hunger Games will be the good ones, this one will be the alright one, Divergent will be the bad one. That's basically how it works.
Unless you're the general public, apparently, who absolutely love Divergent for whatever reason.
And there's probably going to be another very similar story coming up before too long that's a very popular book right now that I will not know about until that movie's trailer is released. So, and people start, talking about it. So that's how I felt about The Maze Runner. Our second movie is I'd like to do this real quickly. Our second movie is going to be the Boxtrolls, which, like I said, if you saw the How to Train Your Dragon 2 video, lately I've been having a lot of trouble getting excited for animated movies.
Yeah, totally.
Like, whenever we have one to watch, like, this was the last one we watched today, we just got out of it, and it was the one I was kind of going, well, I guess we'll have to do that before we can leave, and I can finally finish this. But I did have faith in it because, obviously, it's the same company that did Coraline and Paranorman. And a lot of people I've been hearing say it's not better, but it's, like, on par with those.
It is.
Well,
a little bit lower than that.
I hold Coraline on a massive pedestal.
Yeah, same here.
Like, I really, really do love Paranorman, but if you put them on, like, stands, I'd have Coraline here and Paranorman here. That's how much I love Coraline.
It was a little higher than that, but still.
It was, like, in my top 5 of 2000. 2009 was kind of a shitty year for movies, but
yeah.
For an animated movie to make my top 3 it has to be really, really great, usually. Like, not that I'm biased against animated movies, it's just...
There's nothing really good anymore, it seems like.
Well, anyway, so we were talking about originality just a second ago. If you want originality, this is where you can look for it.
Completely.
Just saying this setup is gonna be weird to me, but try to bear with me. I don't know if you, know it, or you've probably already seen it because it's, a week later, but, in the event that you don't know what the setup is and the trailers didn't really go into it too much,
no.
I have no idea if they did.
They really don't.
Okay, well... We actually start with Ben Kingsley's character, who is not a Boxtroll, but he is a villain. He is an exterminator of Boxtrolls. And he's got a little team with him called the Red Hats. And they are, they're basically Ed and Eddie.
Yep.
Because there's the big stupid one that's Nick Frost. There's the tall, skinny, nervous one that's Richard Ayoade. And there's the small, crazy one that's Tracy Morgan. Who even looks like Eddie from Ed and Eddie. And they go to the door of, what was that guy's name? Lord Portly Rind,
yes.
Who is Jared Harris. The cast is really, really British.
Yeah, it is.
And he's offering to kill the Boxtrolls for this Lord because the Lord is obsessed with... I'm just calling him the Lord because I can't...
That's fine.
Because, I suppose I could just call him Jared Harris.
You could.
He has this odd obsession with cheese.
Cheese.
He loves to eat cheese, he loves to smell cheese, he loves to worship cheese. And he tells him that the Boxtrolls are going to eat all of his cheese. So he says, okay, kill them. Whatever you do, don't let them touch my cheese. But the problem is the classes are kind of defined by the hat that you're wearing. And they're really, 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 top-of-the-line, high-class people wear really, really tall white hats with fluffy feathers on the top of them.
Yes.
And Kingsley's character says, I will kill the Boxtrolls for you, but I don't want money. I want that hat.
It's all about a hat. It really is.
So he reluctantly agrees to this. Because he really, really loves the hat. There are a couple of dilemmas in the movie where he has to decide between his daughter and the hat, and it takes him a minute.
Yeah.
So anyway, we have this second plot going on where we follow the Boxtrolls, and this plot is basically Elf.
Yeah. Because
there is a baby who is given to them, which we learn more about that later. It's like a reveal about halfway through. How he ended up with them. So he shows up and he's wearing because what the Boxtrolls are, they're just these trolls that wear boxes and they live inside them and they don't come out of them. They're like turtles in a shell.
And their names are the boxes that they're wearing.
Yeah, and he shows up and he's wearing this box that says for eggs.
Mm-hmm.
And basically our main Boxtroll is the one that kind of takes him in and acts as his fatherly figure. It's a fish box, and it's really funny because he's tall, so the box is vertical, and the way the fish is on the box, the tail is up here, so it looks like he's constantly wearing a tie. I don't know if that was on purpose. I'm sure it probably was.
Probably.
That's the way I kept looking at him. and he takes them in, and he eventually grows up to be like a normal-sized kid, growing up believing that he's a Boxtroll. You could take it as Elf, or you could take it as the Penguin from Batman Returns, whatever you want to go with. My concern was that the Boxtrolls don't speak English. One of them says like one word, but I don't even remember what it was. But they kind of speak in their own language, and it has to be translated by the kid later.
It's like the Minions, somewhat.
Yeah, my question is, how did the kid learn English?
I don't know.
Because he speaks English.
Yeah.
He can speak in English to the Boxtrolls, and they speak back to him in their language, and they just understand each other. It's like Groot and Rocket Raccoon.
Yeah.
But I know it's not that big a deal, and I think you're probably meant to just dismiss it. It's probably meant to be funny, too, but I just kept wondering how the kid learned English. Which you could say the same thing about the Penguin Batman Returns, I guess, but screw it. And then there's kind of another side plot where Lord Portly Rhyne has I can't say his name without laughing.
I know.
Has a resentful daughter played by Elle Fanning. And that's when it comes to terms where she talks about the fact, before those scenes even happen, she talks about the fact of, sometimes I'm not sure who you choose between me and that hat. I love the importance of the hat.
The hat's extremely important.
And cheese.
Hat and cheese. And cheese.
And that's pretty much what it is. And everybody's afraid of the because obviously we see that the Boxtrolls are all friendly and shit, but they're built up. The Kingsley's character and Portly Rhyne as well, I think, likes to build them up as like bloodthirsty creatures.
It's like the borrowers, basically.
No.
In essence.
Where he basically says, you know, they pick their teeth with the bones of babies and they live in rivers of blood and all that. But we see where they live, and it's just, you know, a nice, friendly place.
Reminds me of Flushed Away a little bit.
Yeah, kind of. Now, and we do have some interesting characters here. The most interesting character in the movie, weirdly enough, is the red hat played by Richard Ayoade, Mr. Pickles.
Yes.
There, Mr. Gristle is the small one. There's Mr. Pickles, and then who was Nick Frost?
Mr. Trout.
So, Mr. Pickles is interesting, and this goes all the way through to the credits. It's really, really interesting, too. I won't mention what that is, because it's a fun thing to see, because it's kind of, that's an interesting thing to do during your end credit sequence. Richard Ayoade's character is really, obviously he's a red hat, so he's out hunting the Boxtrolls just like the rest of them. But, he's constantly telling himself that the red hats are the good guys and the Boxtrolls are the bad guys.
Yep.
And as the movie progresses, he starts to wonder where his place is. Because he starts to wonder, you know, who are the good guys and who are the bad guys. And then it gets to a point to where he's, like, about to capture a Boxtroll, and he's like, I'm 60 to 70% sure this is a good thing.
He gets called a stooge. He's like, I don't like being called a stooge.
Nick Frost is there. Am I a stooge?
Am I a stooge?
And since it's worth noting that Nick Frost is in this movie, it's also worth noting, I didn't know this till the credits, it was a pleasant surprise. I won't say who his character is either, because that's kind of a reveal, but Simon Pegg is in here too.
Yep.
So, he shows up later. I knew it was Nick Frost because I remember seeing his name on IMDb, but if I hadn't, I wouldn't have known that was him. No. About halfway through, I recognized Tracy Morgan. I knew Richard Ayoade immediately.
Yeah, easily.
So yeah, now here's the thing. It's really, really funny.
Yes.
It's about an hour 38, but it feels really short.
Yeah.
Like I said, we got a lot of originality going here and a lot of ideas. But I had a bit of an issue to where I think it kind of, obviously it falls short of Coraline, and it does kind of fall short of Paranorman also. I put him at the bottom of the three. Are there more in this, or are these?
These are the main ones. I'm pretty sure there's got to be at least one more. Has to be.
Another thing, I keep wanting to say 9 was one of them, but I can't remember. But anyway, a couple of problems I had. It's a couple of problems, but it's kind of the same thing. I really hate to say this. I'm doing this twice in a row now. I feel like shit, but I'd say maybe it's almost original to a fault. Well, I say original, I mean the idea. It is based off a book, obviously, but when I say original to a fault, I mean Yeah, it's a funny setup, and it's a really funny concept, that this is all about cheese in a hat.
Yeah.
But the concept is so odd that for me, it felt kind of hard to be completely pulled in. I kind of felt like I was on the outside looking in the whole time, like saying, this is a very odd plot playing out to my, humoring me. But, yeah, and I found it kind of hard to invest in the Boxtrolls as characters, because there's not a whole lot to them. Like, only a couple of them really have distinct personalities, and one of which is just the one that eats bugs.
Yeah.
And then the other is fish. But the others are just kind of there, and you don't really,
They don't really do anything, they're just kind of background.
Yeah. Like you said, there's like in the Despicable Me movies, there's those two minions that everybody knows, and then there's just the rest of them. It's pretty much the same thing with the Boxtrolls.
Yeah.
And that's... I don't know, that also kind of made it hard to, invest in that, but still, it's really creative. The animation is really great.
Yeah.
We saw it in 2D, but I would say the 3D probably looked fairly okay. The 3D in Coraline is fucking amazing.
Yes, it is. Even watching it at home on your television, the 3D looks awesome in Coraline.
So my main problem is probably the characters, because the kid, too, the main kid, isn't really... he's basically Norman if Norman got that hair cut down.
He looks identical to Norman. When I first saw the trailer, I thought that's exactly who it was.
Yeah, so... But, the movie's still perfectly okay. Like I said, it's visually nice, and it's really funny, and the concept is very original and funny in itself, so it does have all those things going for it, but I didn't love it the way I love the other two.
It's okay. It's definitely not Coraline. And it's not Paranormal, I agree with that. But I wouldn't necessarily... It's definitely the third, without a doubt. But I don't think I would drop it, like, super low. I mean, it's still there. It's still one of the better animated movies we've seen this year. But that's a very small list. I can think of 3 off the top of my head right now.
Okay. On our last movie for today, for this week, for a while...
Till next week.
This Is Where I Leave You, which also went to TIFF this past year, like the one that just happened last month. And I wasn't really sure what it was. I knew Jason Bateman and Tina Fey were in it, but I guess as the rest of the movies this year, I didn't see the trailer. So, but I did see IMDb had a banner with the whole cast on it, and I was like, "Whoa! All these people are in it. This is awesome." And it follows. Well, we have our matriarch, who is Jane Fonda, and then we have the 4 siblings, and their dad has just died. And it's Jason Bateman, Tina Fey, Corey Stoll, and Adam Driver. And in case if you think, he's kind of out of place, it's referenced a few times. Adam Driver is like a lot younger than them.
Yeah.
It's not weird casting or anything. They bring it up.
It fits pretty well, too.
And then the cast list is still expanding, because we have Bateman's wife, who is Abigail Spencer, and his boss, who is Dax Shepard. Then we have Corey Stoll's wife, who is Catherine Hahn. Then we have Adam Driver's much older girlfriend, who is Connie Britton. And then we have... who else is here?
Fantastic.
Yeah, Timothy Olyphant is like the guy next door that is Tina Fey's like ex from forever ago, that she left when he had an accident that kind of gave him a brain damage.
And Rose Byrne. Yes,
and Rose Byrne is kind of a, well, the opening is that all of them have, like, really horrible personal lives. Mm. Because Tina Fey's husband is extremely neglectful. Jason Bateman catches Abigail Spencer banging Dax Shepard. On her birthday, he brought her a cake and everything and walked in on Dax Shepard's ass.
Yeah.
Corey Stoll and Catherine Hahn are having a lot of trouble getting pregnant. And Adam Driver is just playing an extremely irresponsible, reckless type. Who is basically... It's kind of on the verge. We don't know if he's dating Connie Britton. It could be love, but it could also be the fact that she is an extremely rich lawyer.
He gives her class... She gives him class is basically what he was saying.
Classes.
Yeah.
Rose Byrne is the character that's kind of introduced as a possible new love interest for Bateman. But the question kind of remains up in the air: is he going to go back to Abigail Spencer, or could he do that? It's like its own thing. Everybody kind of has their own subplot going on.
She's from his past too.
Yes, and what really works here is that none of these plots really fall short.
No.
Because not only do you have this really awesome, appealing cast, what this movie did really, really well, and I don't know what this movie's I think this movie kind of has a lukewarm reaction, which is kind of surprising, because there's a lot of things this movie does right where it could have gone horribly wrong.
True.
Because in all these movies, with these big cast lists, usually there's always one or two subplots that don't believe. Yes, Ben Schwartz from House of Lies is also in it. As,
Boner.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you call what he does.
He's a rabbi.
Yes, okay, yes. Of course, right. Because I was sitting there in my head going, what do you call a Jewish priest again? Right, of fucking course. I don't know why I didn't think of that. But, yes, and his name is Boner, and that has a couple of good jokes. More so than you're probably thinking. It probably sounds cheap. A character has a funny name, haha.
It's not growing pains either.
Within context, if the movie wins you over, then it'll be funny.
Yes.
If not, you're screwed.
Yep.
But no, the great thing here is so many movies try to do this kind of thing, and they usually end up wasting a lot of cast members or making really pointless, idiotic subplots.
True.
The Big Wedding just popped in my head right now.
Oh, God.
It kind of reminds me of, there's a movie not many people saw called Eulogy that's pretty funny. I don't even remember who else in it. It's a big cast list, but Hank Azaria and Ray Romano and Deborah Winger and Rip Torn are all in there. There's a whole bunch of recognizable names in it. It's a lot like this, and it's kind of the same thing. A funeral brings everybody together, but it's like a Jewish tradition where she wants the whole family to stay under the roof for an entire 7 days and do like a gathering, catching up kind of thing.
Yeah.
And grieve together, more or less. And family disputes ensue, but it's actually really, really funny.
Yeah.
And it also has these, it has a lot of emotional beats, obviously. And most of them, I can't really think of one thing that really, fell short. There is a running joke in the movie that involves, Tina Fey's kid who likes to take his, he's
body training.
Yeah, and he likes to carry it around with him and do it in public, and that's got a couple of the throwaway gross out jokes, but apart from that coming back every now and then, most of the movie really, really worked, I thought. And if anybody kind of fell short on screen time, it was Timothy Olyphant, but...
Yeah, he didn't get enough time.
He still does enough. I saw one review that said Connie Britton got thrown away. It's not a big role or anything, but she has, she has enough to sustain being in the movie to work with.
Yeah.
She's got a couple of big scenes. And yeah, sometimes, like I said, it's a comedy. And what I love about it, what I really, really appreciated about it was, I talk a lot about movies that are comedies that have dramatic elements that sometimes forget their comedy and go too much into the drama. And of all things, it's this movie about a basically 7-day funeral, more or less, that realizes what it is and still manages to stay a comedy, because it'll have it has some really, hard-hitting emotional points in it.
Yeah. And
then the next scene will be a comedic scene. So they don't really get misguided or go in a wrong direction or forget what they are and try to be something more than they are. It always finds its way back to what it really is, which is a comedy first and foremost, and those dramatic points that hit at just the right time they need to, without going overboard. And it avoids melodrama too, which was really skillful with a concept like this.
Completely.
See, it does have its cliches in there, like I said, there'll be a lot of stuff in here that won't be funny to you at all if the movie doesn't win you over immediately.
Oh, yeah.
It has the long cliche that we've seen forever where we know which one's the irresponsible kid because he's very loud when he pulls up to the funeral that's outdoors. He has the loud car. Dax Shepard himself, who is in this movie, did that joke and without a paddle.
Yep.
Is that the corpse right there? We should talk about without a paddle sometime.
Not a problem.
And there's the scene where everybody gets high. Like I said, I thought it was a really funny scene, but if you're not into the movie, you're probably gonna say, "Wow, this is cliche, unfunny bullshit," and I hate this. I really don't know what people are thinking about this movie because I haven't really heard anything, but I like it a lot.
It's really good.
Yeah, and of course, I'm just Tina Fey lives right here with me.
Yes.
So of course I love her no matter what, and she's fantastic. I've read somewhere that they thought that some people thought it was kind of awkward to watch her try to do drama because it's a bit out of place for her. She's never really gone into it's a comedic role for the most part, but she does have those emotional parts she has to do. I thought she handled them pretty well.
Absolutely.
And everybody did. Bateman is fantastic in this.
Yes.
Bateman's kind of doing a back and forth here. He started off with Bad Words, which is still one of the top 5 movies of the year.
Yep.
Then we had The Longest Week. Ugh. But then he's back now with this, so it's all good.
And he's back with Catherine Hahn again.
Yeah. So who's now trying to bang him this time?
Yes.
So yeah, we'll just forget The Longest Week ever happened, please. That was a down point for him and Olivia Wilde. That movie tried to screw this year over with them, but no, they both still come out on top. So, yeah, I thought the whole cast was great. I'm really, really taking a liking to Adam Driver. He's had 3 performances now this year that I really like with this, What If, and Tracks. So, and obviously I haven't watched The Girls for like an entire season and a half now, but he was the best part of it the last time I saw it. So, yeah. So, yeah, this wasn't a bad day for movies.
No, it really wasn't.
Okay. A nice, clean finish.
Final thoughts here. Maze Runner?
I don't know why we're doing this because people probably saw these a week or 2 ago now, but we'll do it anyway. Yeah, it's not bad.
The Boxtrolls?
Yeah, it's not bad either.
This is where I leave you.
Yeah, it was my favorite movie of these 3.
Without a doubt, same here.
And that's not my Tina Fey bias either.
No, I know it's not. You actually really enjoyed the movie, I could tell. Because you don't laugh out loud during movies very often. Okay, so next week, Dracula Untold, Alexander, and the way too long title.
When I was in elementary school, that was always like the one book that was on the shelf in the library, so I saw it like practically every day. That's how I remember the title.
What is it again? Terrible,
horrible, no good, very bad day.
Very bad day. Okay, and The Judge actually is coming, and
I get to see if I am out of my mind by saying something I said in the Oscar video. You'll see later.
Yes, and Skeleton Twins is coming soon. As soon as next week.
Hopefully. Maybe
Love is Strange soon. Who knows? And hopefully we have The Drop in Tusk coming soon. We don't know exactly when, but
probably not, but
soon. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. So, enjoy the rest of the videos. Versus coming up. Versus will be coming up. I might actually have already been up by now. But Brady Versus is Cryptic Comet is camera. So we're going into horror themed. And like I said, the aforementioned Academy Awards prediction video is coming this weekend as well. A spoiler alert for Gone Girl. That's coming up as well. So a lot of AJ content coming up this week on Pop. So, AJ, any parting words?
That's it.